I'm Mike, and welcome to Retro Boost. Joining me today is Tory, my co-host from the Retro Boost podcast, and longtime co-host on Retro Boost Arcade, multiple years now.
Absolutely. Yep. For sure have some highlights of those, and can't wait to make more stuff with you throughout the years, bud.
For sure. New year coming up.
Absolutely.
By the time this video is out, it's going to be in the new year, so it's already January. We're time traveling, because this comes out later, so... Crazy. It's nuts. It's already, like... March whenever this comes out.
Yeah, wild. Time is just time is flying. So
today is all about the N64.
Yep.
So it's been a while since we've done a video like this one together. The last time being the Blade and Battler First Impressions video. Very cool controllers. Still use them today. Although I'm starting to lean more toward the ones on the stage right over there, which is the 8BitDo Pro 2, because it works for like everything.
Nice.
Which is why I like it. Really like the idea of having like just one controller that works for everything.
Absolutely.
And whether it's that controller or other ones that they make, or just their receivers, which are compatible with like PS4 controllers or Xbox One controllers, it's just kind of awesome to be able to have one thing for all your stuff.
Absolutely.
Because that's been the challenge. It's fun to demo and play around with all these controllers, but it's also not really like feasible to have like 30 controllers on standby. You know?
Right, for sure.
So that's been a really good one. I'll make a video about it sometime, waiting on a couple of final adapters before I get it working for all my stuff. It's really cool. Anyway, though, so today is all about the N64. So this video was suggested as an idea from one of the channel's longtime viewers. What today is going to be all about is those experiences. We're going to go over like childhood memories of playing a lot of these games, kind of reflect on what we think of those games now. We'll also touch on other stuff regarding the console, some little factoids about it, go over the controller, some of the accessories, things like that. That'll be today's agenda.
Very excited for this. This console came out when I was 8, so I certainly have a lot of highlights playing it, and can't wait to work through those with you today.
Yeah. Special thanks as well to all of our Discord server members. We recently did 2 giveaways on the Discord for digital movie codes for Titanic and Oppenheimer. So everyone who's in the Discord, sincerely thank you for taking that extra step in regard to supporting the channel and what we all do. Really appreciate it. The Discord server is a fun little place. We all just talk about random things, share some memes, talk about movies. There's also dedicated sections in there for talking about all the retro gaming stuff that the channel's all about. It's good fun. So thanks to everyone who watches the content, thanks to everyone who subscribes, and thanks to everyone who is a member of the Discord server. So let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So, before we get into talking about all of the games, kind of hot takes on them, let's talk a little bit about the N64 itself.
Okay.
Now, this is probably not going to be new information for 99% of the people watching, but just to be thorough, some of these are interesting talking points. So, the Nintendo 64 was Nintendo's like first big real foray into true 3D gaming.
Yep.
Obviously, they've experimented with it prior to this with like Mode 7 games on the Super Nintendo and the Virtual Boys stuff, but this was like the first like doing it for real here. And that proved a challenge, games having to go from 2D to 3D, you know, maintaining their identity. What makes a Mario game a Mario game when you take it from 2D to 3D, right? Questions like that have to be asked. But also, it was still cartridge-based, like the Super Nintendo, in an era where things were going more toward disc.
Yep.
And the last kind of little weird thing is that since this was like the first real attempt at 3D for Nintendo, the controller is suitably as primitive. So we're going to kind of briefly touch on all of that here. So I think firstly what I want to bring up is the cartridges.
Yeah.
So the N64 was Nintendo's last cartridge-based home console. Obviously Portable was still using cartridge until now.
Yeah,
Like
right.
they never didn't use cartridges for portable games because the DS, 3DS, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy, and then the Switch
Yep.
are all cartridges.
Yeah.
But for home consoles until the Switch, which is really funny to think about.
Yeah.
This was the last cartridge one in an era where the competition was using CDs. So I think it's cool. The cartridges definitely are, you're going back in time when you see stuff like this.
100%. Yeah.
Some people used to call these tapes. I never knew anyone that called them that.
No,
but
yeah,
I've seen that online. Like I think the Angry Nerd brought that up at some point. Now I can't speak to anyone ever saying that they call these tapes, but I can tell you that I've had people that refer to this and any other game console as a Nintendo.
Ah, that's funny.
That happened a lot when I was a kid. People
Really?
would refer to any of this as a Nintendo.
Yeah, I think that one of the funny things about the console for sure is you brought up the controller and how we have modern experiences now on the controller thanks to things like this, and those as well. The controller is a hard thing for me to move on from. I have a lot of disdain for the N64 controller. I think that it's an odd bird, and it is an example of Nintendo maybe thinking things too much. But at the time, growing up, it did fine. It did well. I have had a hard time in my adult life going back and playing some of the games that haven't found a way to modernize its control schemes. We'll get into the games, but there were a few of them that I deemed somewhat unplayable. Just an opinion, but we'll get into all of that later.
What's really funny, like you just said, like when I was a kid, I did not have a problem with that controller.
Yeah.
But as an adult, it's really hard for me to work with that thing.
Yes. I'm so glad I'm not the only one.
No, it's so that gray one right there, that's the original controller. That's my childhood controller.
Wow.
And you can tell it's got some mileage on it because look at the stick, how it's just like,
Yeah.
like
It'll lean a little bit if it's got a lot of play on it.
You can't really use it anymore. It doesn't even work that well.
Yeah.
Like it's a problem.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't have a problem with it back then, but I struggle with that thing now. And there are thankfully alternatives.
Exactly.
There's a variety of them right here. You have like the Retrobit Tribute 64, which is probably the best. If you want something that feels more modern, but still is invocative of the N64, right down to how the buttons feel.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of slippery plastic that the N64 controller has. That's a really good one.
Oh, yeah.
Then you have like Retro Fighters Brawler series, which is what that one is. Those are really good too. They're even more modern feeling. They kind of feel like a Switch Pro controller, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then there's like the 8-bit-do one that I've already mentioned, which you could also just use an Xbox controller or a PS4 controller. I did a whole video on the Blue Retro stuff for the N64. Using all that stuff. You can use a Switch Pro controller if you want to on the N64 now. It's great.
Yeah.
So there are no shortage of alternatives. But yeah, the other really wacky thing about the controller is that it's got like kind of two distinct use cases.
Yes.
So I'm always changing how I refer to these, but basically it's stick mode or pad mode.
Yes.
So stick mode is you're holding the middle trigger with your left hand, and you use the analog stick and then the R button for whatever. That's what like the bulk of the games use.
Yes.
Then there's pad mode, which you hold the outer two gripping points and you won't use the stick. I'm only aware personally of two games that use pad mode, which is Kirby 64 and Pokemon Stadium. I'm sure there are more, but those are the only two that I'm familiar with that use non-stick mode. Which again is just so bizarre.
So weird.
I even had like a whole rant about the control that I cut from my Star Fox review that I did like 3 years ago. Just because I didn't feel like it didn't really add anything to the review and it was just kind of going off topic. But like the really easy joke to make is that, what, do you need 3 arms to play this thing? But the reality is no, because the thing has 2 different modes. Like, even if you had 3 arms, no game uses all the buttons.
Right.
It's just so... I can't get past the fact that they would design a controller that has buttons you don't use for most games.
Yeah, I'm 100% the same way. Like, a great example of a game that gets infinitely better when you remove yourself from being forced to use the standard controller is Star Fox 64. That is an example of a game on the console that benefits greatly from a new controller scheme, which is funny because, you know, like I've said before, when I was young, it just was what it was, and we just kind of made it work. Like, I can confidently say that I was way better at GoldenEye when I was a child than I would be now. I have tried to play that game on Switch, and it is not playable at all. And there's very few games that I can say that I was better at when I was a kid than as an adult. And uniquely, that is one of them.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And like, again, it sounds like I'm being really negative on it. Like,
yeah.
But... as a kid, I didn't have a problem with the controller. As an adult, I struggle with it as an adult, and I'm curious if other people feel the same way.
100%.
One thing I'll also say about these alternate controllers, bringing something like Star Fox up into the mix, the one deficiency of the Retro Fighters controller there is that both of the bottom triggers are Z, which would be like your left shoulder button, basically.
Right.
So for Star Fox, Z makes you bank left. R makes you bank right. So you're holding the controller kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
Now, that's all fine and good until you hold a controller like that, where both of your bottom triggers are the same button. The Tribute 64 has the ability, you can hold down both of the shoulder buttons and it swaps them. So now both your triggers are doing left and right, which is awesome.
Yes.
The 8-bit-do can do that too because you can map the buttons.
Nice.
I'm told that the Nintendo Switch Online version of the Retro Fighters Brawler, because there's one that's made for the Switch specifically, has the ability to remap the buttons.
Very nice.
Which is cool. I wish that one did. That'd be perfect. That's the one downside of it. And it's all a side effect of the controller itself being so bizarre.
Yes, 100%.
Because like, if it wasn't like that, I wouldn't have that problem. If there weren't effectively 2 shoulder buttons on the 64 controller, that wouldn't be a problem. Actual L and then Z are both technically the left shoulder button. It's really strange. Going back to the cartridges... the really fascinating thing here is that it looped back around to itself.
Yes.
So the cartridges for the N64 were kind of seen as a bad thing because they weren't as memory efficient as the discs on, say, PS1 were.
100%.
Now we've looped now, and you can get SD cards that are like 256 gigs and it's still that big. So like it came back around. Cartridges are now again superior to disc because not even a 4K Blu-ray disc is more than like 100-something gigs. So that's kind of funny. But in the lens of the N64, that wasn't really much of a problem for Nintendo's stuff because Nintendo historically has always had the ability to just wring out every single speck of performance out of their own consoles. You look at any first-party Nintendo Switch game and like you don't really have the problem of like, well, that looks dated as hell. Like, they look great and they play great. The third-party stuff, though, not so much. The third-party people don't seem to have that ability. A good modern example is Mortal Kombat 12 on Switch. It looks like a PS2 game. So it's like, yikes. And that was still true back in these days. So Nintendo stuff, like Mario 64, Mario Kart, Star Fox, etc., great games. The third-party versions of games like, say, Gex and Hot Wheels Turbo Racing, to name a few, are very inferior to their PS1 counterparts. And that was something that I didn't know back then, that I discovered really shockingly playing some of those on PS1 for the first time. When I first played Gex on PlayStation 3, it was it was one of those like download the game things. I was like, oh, I love Gex. I'll play this. It's a great game. I love it. And then I'm playing it on PS3, which is the PS1 version, and I'm like blown away that there's an opening cutscene. I was like, there's an opening cutscene in this game? There's a story in this game? There's like more dialogue. There's like 6 something levels that were cut. Like there's different music and stuff. I was like, what the hell? Yeah. And like it's because they couldn't like optimize all that for N64.
100%.
It's strange. Same for like Hot Wheels. Hot Wheels Turbo Racing is another childhood favorite of mine, and it has less tracks and soundtracks on the N64 version versus PS1.
Yeah, so an example of that same thing on my end would be one of my favorite IPs, Resident Evil, and number 2 is on the 64, and it's terrible. That's one of my favorite PS1 games for sure, and does not translate well, really at all. So one thing that the 64 did really well, and really Nintendo consoles from there on, peripherals, right? So we had the Rumble Pack. So tell us about your experience with the Rumble Pack. Did you have one when you were a kid?
No.
No?
So I bought that in 2020.
Nice.
Because when I was doing those early game reviews, I became aware of that Star Fox was like one of the highly recommended Rumble Pack games, and they weren't expensive to get. I don't know if they still might not be, but I wanted to get one to try it out. So my first time ever using a Rumble Pack was first stuff that I did for the channel.
How interesting! Nice.
I did not have one as a kid. One thing that I did have peripheral-wise as a kid was the Game Boy adapter, although ironically I didn't own a Game Boy, so it was a paperweight.
Gotcha. Yeah, we had one as a kid, and it was really cool and exciting, and it was a breakthrough at the time for sure. But that is a feature that in my adult life I always have off. I don't want controllers to rumble at all. Like, I don't need it.
For me, it's situational. For the N64, I actually think it's pretty cool. I was not expecting it to be as good as it actually is. When I played around with it. It's also worth noting that the Retro Bit Tribute 64 has that built in.
That's cool.
The Brawler does not. That one does. So that one gives you all of that.
Awesome.
Which is another reason why it's a really great controller. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's interesting how they were able to find multiple uses for the port on the back of that N64 controller. It's pretty sweet.
Definitely.
The other thing that port is used for are the memory packs.
Yep.
These are interesting because memory cards, all the early game consoles use those. PS1, PS2, the Xbox, the GameCube, the N64, all use memory cards. One thing I've noted about those things is they seem to have the space for like 4 games, and then it's done.
Tiny.
And that affected how I played a lot of these games, because not all N64 games require that. Some will save on the cartridge.
100%.
If like Gex, like it took me so long to beat Gex because I was having to restart it so often because I couldn't save the damn thing. Right. And I couldn't really figure out that you could do passwords. At some point I must have figured that out because I did beat it as a kid. Also, going back to the modern controllers, stuff like the blue retro adapters that like that 8BitDo can use, they simulate a memory pack internally.
Perfect.
And it solves the issue of like, you get 3 games.
I think it's a million times the size.
Yeah, the N64 is like, what is all this?
What is all this beautiful space? That's great.
The last accessory I want to touch on is the expansion pack.
Yes.
Now, that is a funny one because I would do a lot of Blockbuster rentals as a kid.
Yep.
And one of the games that I tried to play was Majora's Mask, which is like one of the only games that actually requires the memory pack.
Yep.
So I had to like get a memory pack. And then I couldn't even figure the game out because I was too stupid and young.
Yeah.
But I remember that being like a thing where it was like, oh, I can't play this game because it requires this thing. Like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah, we had that quintessential family holiday experience where your parents buy you a game, you open it the day of, and sure enough, the game doesn't really work without that. So it creates the hysteria of now parents trying to go out and find that, and that's certainly the experience we had with that. It was traumatic, but certainly a strange thing, and we haven't really seen that in today's gaming world, right? We see kind of reskins of consoles, be it the PS2 Slim or whatever the case may end up being, but
the most modern,
we don't really see that anymore.
The most modern equivalent scenario to that I can really think of would be like going from the PS4 to the PS4 Pro, because like it isn't necessarily a next gen console. It's got boosted specs, right? But the difference is, imagine if it was like an expansion bay.
Yeah.
And you were buying like the PS4 Pro add-on and like it plugs into the console.
Exactly, yeah.
Like that's all it does though is add RAM. Like it just adds memory to the system.
Right.
Whereas like the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X were like legitimately more than just memory. It was a better everything.
Yeah.
Better GPU, better CPU, better memory. It's all better. So it's so bizarre. Why not just have it in there?
I don't know. That's
Why would you design this bay that you could put more stuff in? Just put the damn thing in there and increase the cost of the system by $30. Like, what are you doing?
100% agree with you.
It's a very strange situation.
Very strange.
Yeah, we had the similar like passions were running hot to get that, and so funny. It was a game that I couldn't even figure out anyway.
Ours was Perfect Dark. That was the game, because if you didn't have the thing, all you could do was either all you could do was the single player, or all you could do was the split screen. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember we did not have the pack, so we couldn't play the full game. We couldn't get that full experience, and I remember that being a really like, as a kid, it's like the end of the world, and I just remember that being an impactful moment for sure.
That's funny. So that's pretty much just like the summation of the things I want to talk about hardware-wise. Now, a lot of this was coming across as negative. I mean, it's kind of like we're archaeologists right now. We're digging back and we're comparing to how things are now, and obviously things are better now than they were back then. So don't take it as this thing is garbage and here's why. No. Love this console. Love so many of the games, but analytically, there's some interesting talking points to bring up, and there's things that are good, there's things that are bad. So, that's what we're talking about.
Can't wait to get into the games. That's certainly going to be the part about this that's going to be glowing.
Yes. So, what we're going to do for the games, this is going to be kind of like a thing here. So, I want to talk about the first game that I ever played for the N64. Now, the N64 has a lot of classics on it. GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64. There's these crazy games. None of that.
Okay.
Gex.
Okay.
Gex was the first game I ever played.
Nice.
It's the best N64 game. It's the best game ever made.
We're about to go to war because that is not the case at all. Oh, God.
Before we get into talking about the games, a big thing I want to make sure I mention is how I recorded the games. Talk about things like the 5X Pro and the Rad 2X lot on the channel, and I wanted to use a variety of both of those for getting the capture footage. So the capture footage for the games comes from my RGB modded N64, and I used interchangeably the 5X Pro and the Rad 2X as the medium for getting that capture footage. The Rad 2X is an excellent HDMI adapter that I would recommend very quickly for anyone that has like just an N64 or just an N64 and maybe also a Super Nintendo, because it works for both. It's great. It's also compatible with RGB modded systems, which is really cool because you don't even need to buy like different cables to fully take advantage of that if you're using the Rad2X. The 5X Pro gets the best N64 experience if you use S-Video cables, or if it's RGB modded, you could use a SCART cable or component. For this, I created kind of a new 5X Pro profile that I like quite a bit, using 1080p under, and then utilizing the de-blur feature of the console itself interchangeably for some games. I feel like some games look better with de-blur not enabled, weirdly enough. It just depends. The big thing about this is the N64 is just such a difficult console to improve the quality of. It is not like the Super Nintendo, where if I take the Super Nintendo and I get like component cables for it and it's a one-chip console, using something like the 5X Pro, it looks crystal clear. Like, it's insane how good it looks. The N64 is not like that. Even with RGB modification, even with better cables, it still has the N64 flavor.
Right.
That's like the nice way of putting it. Like, it isn't like emulation, where emulation just cleans up and fixes various things. Although it's possible to take that too far. I know that very controversially, like the fog was removed from like certain games on Nintendo Switch Online. So like rooms in like Ocarina of Time, like the water temples, like that tree room where you fight Shadow Link, the fog is gone or something like that.
Weird.
So like you know right away that it's a room you're in. Yeah. And like the mystery is removed completely.
That's interesting.
But yeah, so I don't know if they patched that or not. They probably should have if they should patch that. But yeah, so bottom line is the N64 is a very tough console to improve the quality on, and there's only so much that even high-end upscalers like the N64 can do. But I feel like the two ways of best managing it with the 5X Pro specifically would be HDR, which I'm not going to do that for this because I just want to create like a very kind of normalized kind of capture experience. But if you wanted to kind of get like the quote-unquote best experience, you'd want to use the 5X Pro's HDR flagging feature, couple that with scan lines, manage the brightness some, and you can really emulate CRT, and it looks pretty incredible.
Nice.
But for the purposes of this video, I went with 1080p under because I feel like it's the clearest for the N64, although it is not the most screen filling. And for some people, that might be a bummer. It doesn't bother me at all, but you know, some people, hey, there's other options though. You could use 1080p over, which is more screen filling, or even the 1440p modes, which I can't do because the capture card is just doesn't like those. So wanted to make sure I was clear about what settings I was using for the 5X Pro before we get into talking about the games proper. So with that said, let's get back into it. I believe I was... Alright, so that's not a joke or a bit. Gex really was the first game on N64 I ever played, which also means it's one of the first video games I ever played in general.
Wow, nice.
Because, I mean, I had friends and family that had game consoles that I remember playing at their house, but that was definitely after this. So, fun.
Awesome.
So yeah, I know that Gex is like a big meme around the internet, but like for me, like that game means a lot to me.
Interesting.
So with it being the first game, so we got the N64 in 1998, and Gex and F1 Grand Prix were the two games that we had for it, that my dad brought home. So like he played the F1 game a little bit when we first had the console, but Gex was like the first big thing that I got to play. So, man, what an experience. Now, I've already talked about Gex for the channel because I did a review video for it. But, man, what a game. What a game to play before playing stuff like Mario 64.
Yeah, bathed in fire.
So Gex is a platformer. Very Mario 64 inspired in its design, because it has like a lot of the same things that Mario 64 has. It has the hub world that leads to other levels. It has the collectible MacGuffins in those levels. For Gex, it's the remotes. When you get a remote, you leave the level, much like Mario 64.
Yep.
And then you can save the game and go back. Which, man, what an achievement in design Banjo-Kazooie is, in respect to the fact that you can do all of the level's objectives without being booted out of it. That's so cool. That's something that Mario wouldn't really do until one of the most recent Mario games, which is Bowser's Fury.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Sunshine, you can't do that. Odyssey, I don't think you could do that either.
Odyssey, you do.
Oh,
so,
nice. Okay.
Odyssey lets you... that's
Great
what
game.
I meant to say, actually, is that Bowser's Fury, it's all one giant world. Now, Odyssey, yes, you would collect all the moons per world uninterrupted in sequence.
Gotcha.
But it's crazy how kind of ahead of its time Banjo was in that respect.
100%. Yeah.
But we'll talk about Banjo separately. It's just worth noting since they're also similar.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Gex is very Mario 64 inspired. One thing that Gex really fails on that Mario 64 nails, though, is the control. Because Gex, when it first came out, was in that era of PS1 games where not everything was DualShock compatible.
Right.
Because there is a PS1 controller that's only D-pad. It was there wasn't a DualShock at first.
Just the the basic PS1 controller was just the directional pad, and that was it. Yep.
So that's the era that I guess Gex was either made in or for. Because, well, yeah, because even though the PS1 version is compatible with DualShocks, it's still an 8-way game.
Right.
It isn't like Mario 64 where you can really like curve Mario's path so smoothly. Now, Mario 64's camera system isn't perfect,
right,
but compared to Gex, it certainly is.
Yes.
Because that's the biggest thing that I note playing it as an adult is I just can't get past how atrocious the camera is and how I have so many deaths that I can attribute to how bad the camera is.
Right.
And the camera, like, you're actively fighting it as you play the game. As a kid, I know that I struggled with that, but like really couldn't attribute it to any one specific thing.
Sure.
I probably wrote the game off as being hard, but in reality, the game isn't that hard. The camera just makes it harder.
Right.
The other big memory I have playing as a kid is that I think the controller pack we had was defective.
Oh.
Because I have a distinct memory of so many games telling me that the controller pack is corrupted. And for a game like Gex, it uses the controller pack to save.
Right.
So that meant that I couldn't really save the game. So I remember restarting that game a million times. And that was the biggest obstacle to beating it.
Right.
Because I had to restart so many times.
Yeah.
And it's not a terribly long game, but like it also is.
Yeah.
Because like to beat the game, you have to collect a lot of those red remotes to access the final area, access the final boss.
Right.
So had to restart it a lot as a kid, but playing it as an adult, it doesn't come across as difficult. It's just a matter of the camera itself being like the biggest adversary.
Yeah.
But I will say the final boss is pretty tricky, and it's because I was doing it wrong.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
I'm not sure if I tackled this point specifically in my review of the game for the channel. But going into the final boss, it's got two phases. You've got the first phase where Rez is the name of the villain. He'll try to hit you. You get a free hit first out of the gate. The game lets you get him immediately. Then he goes first person view from his perspective, and he shoots these missiles at you. When he's done doing that, he'll attempt to hit you physically, and then either you can make him hurt himself, or you can whack him, and you gotta do that 3 times. Then it goes into phase 2. He becomes giant size, and you're running around him in a ring, and he'll try to smash you. And what you want to do is you want to trick him into smashing these button things that appear, and it makes a giant old school DLP television crash on his head. Do that 3 times and you win.
Nice.
But man, was it hard. and I realized I was kind of doing it wrong. It's way more manageable if you don't go out of your way to like avoid being smashed by him, because I was trying to like jump and get out of the way, but that's a mistake. If you don't jump, it's way easier to avoid his fists smashing down.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, so you just get smashed.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Like, I guess you jump, and it makes it easier for his fist to like intercept you when you get hit.
Interesting.
And in Gex, you only get 4 hits, and you're dead. Like that can go really. Like if you get 1 hit in that first phase, just restart. Like you're not gonna go into that second phase good. And one thing that kind of irritates me is going into that battle, the game lets you get a health restorative. In Gex, you can whack little televisions, and either they give you 1-ups if they're purple, or they give you health if they're green. They're flies that'll orbit Gex, and then you can eat the flies. I don't understand why the game lets you have the fly orbit you, and they give that to you before you go into the final boss, because if you get hit with a fly orbiting you, it runs away, and you can't eat it. So it's like, why would you give me one to like
weird.
Bank if I can't save it? Because if I get hit, it runs away. Like,
weird.
What is going on with that decision?
What strange design.
So I beat him in the recording that I did for the prep for this video, which is kind of fun.
Oh, nice.
And here's where we go back to that conversation about the version differences being so catastrophic. Because when you, in the PS1 version, there's an opening cutscene that shows Rez, and then there's an ending cutscene where Rez is like on this television screen and he talks to Gex and they have some dialogue for a second. They do like a really goofy Star Wars kind of thing where it's like, I'm actually your father. And then like he turns off the TV and walks away. Gex does. That's not in the N64 version. Oof. The opening or the ending cutscene. Like, it's very anticlimactic.
You beat the game and then the credits roll?
Yes.
That's what I
You
figured.
beat the game and it hard cuts to the credits.
Wow.
Like it's almost a jerky, like then the credits play. So it's very anticlimactic compared to the PS1 version. There's no story. I remember kind of like almost having to like invent a story in my head when I was a kid as to why all these things are happening. The only reference to Rez prior to the game's final 2 levels, which are called Rezopolis and then Channel Z, which has Rez's face on it, is a boss fight against Mecha Rez, which is a Godzilla themed, which as a kid, cool. I love that boss fight.
Absolutely.
It was really hard as a kid, but as an adult, I just creamed it because I understand it better.
Right.
Because when I was a kid, I was bad at video games, like straight up.
Gotcha. As
an adult, I can like immediately figure out what's going on here, and I just like shred that boss fight. But it's a pretty fun one. It's probably the only good boss fight in that whole game, other than maybe how difficult the Rez one is. Because Gex plays the role of Godzilla, and then like Mecha Rez is like Mecha Godzilla, and you have to like whack him in between his invincibility states. You can destroy buildings that he climbs onto, and he falls off the buildings and it hurts him. Fun fight for me as an adult because I get all these references. I liked Godzilla though as a kid, so I liked it for that reason too.
Definitely.
So that game's control and camera and whatnot do not hold up super well playing it as an adult, but I still like it quite a bit.
Cool.
What was one of your earliest N64 games?
Star Fox 64 was one that I kind of recall playing the most. I would recall us beating the game, but we didn't realize that there were other paths until we owned the game for quite some time. So the idea that there were like multiple endings here, different storylines. You could take the path all the way north, all the way south. You could go in the middle. Just branching paths really like created unique experiences for that game. Because like I said, the first time we beat it, we just took that south belt route right through, right?
It's the easy path.
Right. And that was just the storyline of Fox's dad and the characters and Slippy Toad, Peppy Hair, Falco Lombardi. Like, it just had a lot of really cool beats to it that as kids just really, really enjoyed. And, growing up, we were all huge Star Wars fans. So any sort of space type, battles and all of that was things that we gravitated to for sure. And Star Fox, and there was some player versus player elements there too, but we didn't really play a ton of that as kids. Maybe a little bit, but yeah, the story I just thought was really great. The final battle, and Dross, the fact that you could beat that game and be like, okay, well, that was cool, and miss entire things there at the end, like his real final form and things like that. Just loved that game and thought it was really, really cool. I've got a lot of games that I kind of go back to, but that sticks out as really the one that I reflect on the most as far as being a kid and enjoying the N64.
Was that the first game that you played, or just one that?
It's just one that I kind of go back to. I couldn't really recall what the first one would be. Maybe Shadows of the Empire. Maybe, but it's tough to think about what the first one was that I played, because we were kind of flooded with games a little bit as kids. But yeah, those two for sure are ones that I recall. Smash Brothers, of course. We'll get into some more general titles, but
one thing I think is really cool that neither of us said is Mario 64.
Yeah,
which is like so sort of unusual.
Yeah,
because most people, that was one of the first games they played. For me, it wasn't even close. I know that I didn't get Mario 64 until really late in my N64 ownership lifespan.
Yeah,
definitely before having a GameCube, but it was not even remotely the first thing.
So when I was a kid, I had kind of a harder time with like huge open world style games, like and unfortunately that's a lot of the first party games for this device. At like Ocarina of Time, I didn't beat until way later in life. Mario 64 didn't beat it until later in life, so we'll kind of go through it. But my like top games on the device are very unique and very strange.
Well, I'll say it right now before we get into the various quick takes. I never played Ocarina of Time in its heyday. I played that for the first time with the GameCube port that they made.
So good.
Master Quest and everything. I did play Majora's Mask for like all of 30 minutes, but couldn't figure it out, and I've never gone back. I do own it, so I could go back anytime. I own both the N64 version and the 3DS remake, but I've never gone back to it. Additionally, I never played GoldenEye in its heyday, and I've barely really played it since. Never played Perfect Dark, never played Doom, never played Turok.
Whoa!
So there's a lot of like, and I used to get flack from people about like, you never played insert thing here, and it's like, no, like everyone gets exposed to different things at different rates.
100%.
And like, just kind of happens to be that like a lot of the most beloved, or rather the ones that seem to like people bring up a lot, like I haven't played. Now there are plenty of N64 classics I have played, and we'll get into that. So that'll be the next thing we'll start here.
Cool.
Is kind of like just quick takes and memories and kind of thoughts on a lot of the N64's library. Okay, so let's do a bunch of kind of quick takes on various N64 games. There's a lot of good games on the N64. A lot of ones that I really like. A lot of them I've played for the channel, both on my own when I was doing those like early Let's Play stuff and with you. So I think first it makes sense to just kind of touch on the big behemoth of the N64, Mario 64. I think just real quick.
Sure, yeah. So I of course have played that game, and I think one of the things, and you've kind of brought it up before, one of the things that makes that game kind of feel like it was that next step was how smooth the control felt. The way that you could do backflips and those high jumps, and just the way that you controlled Mario it introduced the 3D world into it. It was so great, and it felt so good. Games didn't really feel that clean at that time, and I just recall running around as Mario in that world. It felt so much better than most games that we had played.
It really rewards you for skill. It's like it's one of those games that embodies easy to play, difficult to master. Only it's not really difficult to master because if you put in like a decent amount of time as you play the game, if you're willing to take risks and experiment, like you will get really good at it. And like anyone that really applies themselves can become this like Mario parkour master. It's crazy how like unintentionally the flexibility of control has let speedrunners just annihilate that game. And something that like Aaron from Game Grumps said that I think holds really true is that Mario 64 speedruns are like art. Like you watch this incredible thing play out in front of you. I sent you one recently. The current world record for 0-star runs is insane.
It just blew my mind. Blew my mind.
It's so cool. And then like even the non-0-star, like the 100% runs are crazy as well, how optimized and skilled they are. But that game is so fun to play. I got it kind of late in the N64 lifespan, but still loved it, and I knew of it before getting it, and was really excited to finally own it and play it. And it's such an adventure to go through. It's one of the few N64 games I played early on that had like a story to it, in the sense of like there's characters and like there's dialogue here and there. Like it's crazy. Really loved it. I beat it when I was in that era. That final Bowser fight is like so awesome. His look and the stage and the music. Really, really enjoyed it. Didn't 100% it though until pretty recently. When I was playing it for the channel, that's one of the only games that I completed for the Let's Play stuff that I did. And I had like a special episode for that playthrough where I 100%ed it for the first time.
Nice.
It was my childhood save file that had like 117 stars. And as an adult, now that I get it more and like am better at it than as a kid, I was like, oh, I can do this.
Nice.
And I got the final 100 coin stars I didn't have and beat it. So yeah, classic game. For all of the 3D Marios, I think Galaxy is my favorite. Sunshine is the most similar to 64. If you like that formula, you love what Sunshine does. It's pretty much the same game in that respect. Obviously, the control is way different. You still have a lot of that. I think Sunshine and Galaxy and Odyssey and Bowser's Fury, to an extent as well, all do a great job of still offering that like crazy parkour type thing where like if you get good at it, you get good at it.
I would say Odyssey is my favorite Mario game, and that game really blew me away because I typically don't play too many of the like collect-a-thon games, you know, like kind of like Gex and games in that same mold, right? But Odyssey blew my mind. I thought it was great. So for me, one that I think we have to bring up, right? Because it launched maybe the most well-known fighting series in all of fighting, right? Smash Brothers. The idea when we were kids that you could have Mario fight Peach or fight Pikachu or fight Fox McCloud. The idea of that was just insane to think of as kids. And I think it would be doing a disservice to the console if we didn't bring up that title. Did you have that game when you were a kid? Did you have any experiences with it?
Yes, but what you just said when I was a kid was like an alien concept. I didn't care at all about that.
Sure.
Because Smash is how I was introduced to most of those characters.
Awesome.
So for me, it was just a roster of characters. It wasn't like, oh my god, that's Link from the Legend of Zelda.
We were like freaking out as kids.
That's the funny thing about Smash Bros. For me, is that Smash Bros. Is how I first became aware of characters like Link, Samus, Kirby, etc. Wow. The only characters that I definitely was aware of prior to Smash going into it would have been like Mario and Pikachu.
Sure.
Jigglypuff too, obviously. And that's because, even though I didn't get Mario 64 until later on, I did get Mario Kart early on. So
Gotcha.
I know who those Mario characters were going into Smash Bros. But yeah, I didn't know who or what even some of those characters were. Like, I thought that Samus was a robot.
That's
I
cool.
didn't know that Samus was a human woman from Metroid. Like, I didn't know that. Very similarly, I had no idea who this goofy Captain Falcon person was doing like flaming back kicks and the Falcon Punch. I didn't know who Star Fox was actually too, because I got Star Fox pretty early on as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I was introduced to characters like Samus and Link and so on. Was Smash Bros.
Yeah.
And yeah, Smash Bros. Has a couple of things to it that I think are very unique to it. Number one, I feel like the single player mode of Smash is so good. And despite the fact that it's in Melee and Brawl, and to a lesser extent the other ones that followed, although it keeps getting like modified, it's different. They just can't do it as good as 64 does. For some reason, 64 just does it better.
Yeah.
I feel like the giant Donkey Kong was like such an intimidating stage. And I think it's because it's giant Donkey Kong specifically.
Yes.
It's a giant gorilla monster.
Yeah.
When Melee,
King Kong.
When Melee started doing like it's giant insert character here,
Giant Luigi.
it lost all of that to me.
Yeah.
Giant Peach, giant Jigglypuff. It's like, who cares? It's not the same.
Right.
If it was giant Bowser every time, it'd be different because he's a monster.
Yeah.
So like there's like some very distinct memories I have of like being intimidated or getting stuck on some of those levels.
Yep.
Like Metal Mario scared the hell out of me
Yep.
as a kid. And stuff like that. Master Hand too. It's like this big encounter.
Yep.
And I think that Melee did improve on that because it added Crazy Hand.
Oh yeah.
And like those were rumors that would circle around the school friend groups that I had. Like, have you seen Crazy Hand? I'm like, what's Crazy Hand?
Yeah.
So like there are things about that. The other thing I think that Smash 64 does really well is how impactful the hits are.
Yes.
I feel like some Smash Bros. Games don't do that as well. It's a combination of like the feedback of what you're seeing with the sound effects is what makes some of those hits and weapons and things in Smash 64. You go like, oh, like when you hear it, it's like
100%.
The Falcon Punch sounds like so powerful and violent. Whereas it doesn't really feel like that as much in Melee. Smash Ultimate kind of brought that back with that final hit mechanic that they have.
Yeah.
But I feel like most of the Smash games don't have that same thing. I also had a very funny kind of thing too, where because I didn't have an understanding of who these characters were, it made me assign this value to them. Because I thought Samus was a robot and Samus was intimidating, I thought that Samus was the best ally to have in like AI fights. When in reality it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah.
But something kind of funny is like, you know, an ally character you may get assigned to in one part of the game, you may have to fight later on in the game. So friends become foes and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I thought that was always kind of funny. Like there was just this weird feeling I had of like I fight Fox McCloud and then Fox is my ally. She's the best now.
Yeah, we had a really funny experience with Smash Brothers with one of our friends growing up, and we had played the game quite a bit, me, Thomas, and Bryn, and we thought we were like pretty good, right? And thought we took the game seriously, and everything was great. Well, we had a buddy of ours at our house when we were kids. Tyler Brayman was his name. And he saw that we had Smash Brothers. He was like, "Oh, you guys want to play?" And we were like, "Sure." It was me and Thomas at the time. And quickly it turned into a 2-on-1 because we realized that he was really, really, really good. And crushed us both, which was embarrassing because he was at our house on our console. And we hadn't really played any of our friends before, and when we had, it wasn't really competitive. And that experience really spawned what would become an absolute bloodbath in Melee, because we knew that at some point we would end up playing him again in that game, and it forced us to take the game probably more seriously than we've ever taken a video game since. We were like training and stuff. It was really, really fun and a great experience, and kind of spawned like why I've played all of the Smash games, and why its skill and all of that has been so important, because of a really formative time in our lives that we owe Smash Brothers to, and thanks, Tyler.
When I was playing this as a kid, I really didn't have anyone to play it with. I have a younger brother. He's 4 years younger than me. And we played a lot of games together, but not then, because he would have been like a baby.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't happening until later on. And we would go back and play, like, we mainly played GameCube together, but there were plenty of N64 games we went back to and played later on. But in that era, it was really just me and, like, AI, you know, if the game had it. Very rarely I do have some memories of going to some friends' houses and they would have, like, different N64 games. Like, that's how I was introduced to stuff like Banjo-Kazooie and whatnot. Was like going to friends' houses. But pretty much it was just a solo thing for me on a lot of these games. So like the difficulty of the game would be like the bearing on how far I would get or what I could do with it, or if it even had offline multiplayer. Offline in this respect, meaning like, you know, does it have AI or does it force you to have human opponents? So like, you know, I never played the multiplayer in games like Godzilla Destroy Monsters Melee because the GameCube version didn't have AI. But thankfully games like, you know, Super Smash Bros. and Mario Kart, obviously they do. So that kind of affected that. With that said, another like game that like really doesn't have the same spark to it with computers that I did play though as a kid was Mario Party. I had Mario Party 3 specifically. That was one that I played. I played it a little bit as a kid. Didn't really play it much though, because it isn't as fun when you have, you know, it's computers. It really wouldn't be until playing that with like my brother a little bit, and then recently for the channel, Cameron and I played Mario Party 3, and that was before I even had like RetroTINK and knew about that stuff. But that game is so different when you have friends to play it with.
I have only played Mario Party with friends.
See, it's a way different experience.
When we were kids, we had a really good friend named Matt. Shout out Matt. We played a lot of Mario Party, and that too turned into bloodbaths, because when you're a young kid and your friend sitting right by you steals one of your stars and totally flips the script on how you feel you're doing, it's hard to respond to that when you're a kid. You don't really know. So we would have a lot of Mario Party bouts, and great experiences with the game. Super fun. There's a reason why that series is still out today, right? But certainly enjoyed our time with Mario Party. Absolutely.
Two funny things that happened when I was getting footage for this video with Mario Party. Number one, having a turbo button goes a long way for some of those mini games.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Secondly, very hilariously to your point there, when I was a kid, I would just get crushed playing Mario Party by the AI.
Oh man!
But for some reason, playing it this time around, a lot of the luck was going my way.
Nice. And
very hilariously, a chance time event happened, and I got one of the opponent's stars, and I was like, man, it feels good when it's coming to you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great feeling. But man, it is like, just turn the game off.
I'm pretty sure
cry in the shower when you lose.
I'm pretty sure when I played with Cameron, a chance time event happened and he lost his stars to AI.
Oh man.
And also I like stole an item from him. It was a poison mushroom, and I used it on him afterward, which is so dirty but very funny.
So, you know, we have to bring up Ocarina of Time for sure.
Do we?
Nintendo going into 3D. Brilliantly again, just like they did with the Mario series. I remember as a kid getting into Hyrule Field and just running around on the horse and being in awe of how big the game was and how much space there was and how many things there were to do. I just remember there are very few times in my like video game career where like I remember like being in awe. And the Zelda series has done that twice. Once in Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time, and then in the more recent Breath of the Wild. But yeah, just an example of Nintendo taking one of their series and then modernizing it and just doing a great job. And I think that's a game that is certainly on top of a lot of lists, and I think it deserves a shout out.
Oh, for sure. That's a great game. In regard to like childhood experience and playing it now on N64, like the focus of this video, I got nothing because I didn't play it.
Right.
I did, like I said, I messed around with Majora's Mask and couldn't figure it out, and never went back.
Yeah. It's a shame because Ocarina of Time is so much better than Majora's Mask.
There's like
and
two,
don't come at me.
But to say, there's two schools of thought. One
Majora's Mask fans are like volatile. Like they'll come at you with knives and swords because they my twin Tom he loves that game. I'm not sure he would say it's better, but I know he's a big fan too. Weird one. That game is so strange.
Because I was aware of it, and I you know what? I did play it for like 5 minutes at my godmother's house because she had an N64 for like me to play, and she babysat for a bunch of families.
Cool.
So like those were some of my early childhood kind of friends basically.
Yep.
And so like we played N64 on and off at her house. She had Ocarina of Time, and I think I played it like 5 minutes just meandering around in Kokiri Forest. But cool. I did buy and like have that game on the GameCube.
Yep.
And I love that game. I think it's so good.
Yep.
Even it being an N64 game on GameCube, like didn't even faze me at all.
Yeah.
Like it could have. It was so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just didn't play it in its heyday at all. But I knew of it. And got a taste of it at my godmother's house.
Yeah.
But yeah, going off of what you said earlier regarding collectathons, I think the N64 has like the king of collectathons, and that would be Banjo-Kazooie.
Yep. Never played it.
Really? So there you go.
Never played it.
We're trading things we haven't played then.
Yeah, we I never played it. We had Donkey Kong 64, and I think that style of game, it's cool. It's cool. It's very hard. But I just think that the collectathon style titles don't resonate with me. I certainly have relatives and friends that do, but it's just not a style of game that really moved me. And my experiences as a kid reflects that for sure.
Gotcha.
I understand the impactfulness of Banjo-Kazooie, right? When he was in Smash Brothers, it was like the coolest thing in the world. But as far as like my experiences with that game, I don't think I've ever played it, not once. My friend Matt did, but not me.
You got so many groups of N64 people coming for your soul now.
Yeah, no,
Majora's Mask.
I don't know if it's a good game, bad game. I don't know. Just never played it. I'm assuming it's good.
It's good.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anyone that says that the first one's bad. There are some people that think the second one isn't as good.
Sure.
I haven't played the second one.
Gotcha.
Now, as a kid, I didn't play Banjo-Kazooie that much. I got it pretty late in the N64 life cycle, and by that point, my attention was starting to move on to the GameCube.
Gotcha.
I played it mainly as a teenager, but as a kid, I thought it was pretty cool. It was just kind of confusing to me because the game does have like an absolutely gigantic hub world that can be confusing and kind of maze-like to an extent.
Gotcha.
And the way that it works, you don't just go from stage to stage. You have to like complete puzzle pieces, complete puzzle canvases to unlock a level. But like where that canvas is and where the level entrants are, they're not necessarily connected or near each other. So there's like a confusing element to it that I think kind of threw me off as a kid. So I didn't get too far in it as a kid. As an adult, I came back and just crushed it and like really like it.
Awesome.
I think it's a great game. Great soundtrack, catchy music, fun gameplay. I think it does what any good game does, which is it takes something else's idea and makes it its own and improves on it. And what it takes is some of those general things that make Mario 64 good, the hub world, the collecting aspects. It takes those and makes it its own and makes it better.
Yep.
Just the idea that you could go into a level and like completely annihilate it without leaving it is a great advancement to that formula.
Yeah.
That Mario Sunshine should have tried to do more.
Yeah. Well, you saw a few of those in the Nintendo 64 library itself, where you saw a thing come out that everybody loved that did a really great job, and then you saw like a new version of that come out that just crushed what it had done before. The best example of that, I would say, would be GoldenEye to Perfect Dark. GoldenEye was a studio that knew what they wanted to make. The story had already been told, so they just had to fit a first-person shooter into that story. And Perfect Dark was that same team saying, create your own story and build on what you already did great. And Perfect Dark was just everything that they had done before it, with a unique story, a unique world, all unique guns, with the same skin of kind of like what that game was before. And it just, without a doubt, improved on anything that GoldenEye had done. Did you grow up playing either of those two games? Yeah.
I haven't played I haven't really played either one outside of playing like the first level in GoldenEye like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And that was only because it was kind of like relevant again because it came to Nintendo Switch Online. Mm-hmm. So I decided to play the N64 version just to see what it was. You know, I have it now. I should just play it.
Unplayable.
I thought it was all right. It didn't really grab me too much.
Yeah.
I feel like that game, there are like a lot of places that were like really throwing that up. It's like, it's the greatest first-person shooter of all time.
Yeah.
And that confused me even back then, because like Screw Attack was like one of those places.
Yeah.
It's like top 10 first-person shooters, GoldenEye. Top 10 N64 games, GoldenEye's in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think it's that good.
What?
How can you even say it's one of the greatest first-person shooters in a year where we already have 2 Halos, Doom 3, and maybe Call of Duty Modern Warfare would have probably just come out? Like, how can you say that?
Well, when it came out for Switch, I was like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to play it. And I was mortified at how hard the game was to control. But sitting down in a room with 4 friends playing that, certainly a great experience. And one that I did a ton.
That's what makes it different. So
yeah.
That's the part that I can see, because if you and your friends get together and play any game, it elevates its quality
100%.
in your eyes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that it's like garbage by any means.
Yeah.
I did have fun messing around with it, 6 months ago, and I do want to go back and play it some more. I mean, I kind of have to get footage for us talking about it for this. So
right.
I haven't done that yet, though, so I'm curious. Future me should maybe like put like a 10-second narration. It sucks. Drink Coke.
Yeah.
So like we'll see like how it is.
Yeah.
But I know that it has a thriving speedrun community.
Oh my goodness.
One of like a YouTuber that I follow and like quite a bit is a big GoldenEye speedrunner, and like I've become more aware of it through that person.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but yeah, like it's one of those games I didn't play back then. And I didn't play really at all ever afterward.
Yep.
Until like super recently. Thought it was okay.
If you're gonna play one of them, Perfect Dark, trust me.
I'm looking forward to messing around with that one, because I do have that one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very, very good. It's a shame that Microsoft hasn't done anything with that that world and that series.
They did.
Yeah, but no, they didn't.
But they did though. I haven't. It's on 360.
Whatever they did, they didn't do. I'll just leave it at that.
Whatever they did, you misremembered it.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and drift Mario Kart 64.
Okay.
Another good multiplayer one.
100%. Great game. Played a ton of it. My favorite Mario Kart track in the entire series is in that game, Toad's Turnpike. Love it so much. The fact that they're like random cars that you have to dodge. Just loved it as a kid. Thought it was really cool. Gave me like a traditional racing game experience feel because of the weird cars that were around. I always played as Toad, so I guess I felt some sort of weird like connection to that stage. But loved the game, played a lot of it, and Toad's Turnpike is my jam for sure.
So that was a game that I had pretty early on. So I have a lot of memories of playing that in its heyday.
Oh yeah.
Going back to it, I think it holds up pretty well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's still fun to play today.
Yes.
In terms of multiplayer, not one that I did really any of.
Sure.
Again, because my brother would have been too young at that time.
Right.
Him and I, though, got really competitive with Double Dash, mainly. And it really kind of feels that that's kind of it for me for Mario Kart. Like, I feel like no Mario Kart has given me the same level of excitement that 64 and Double Dash have. And I've played them all, like, as they came out, and thought that they're all good. But, like, none of them have blown me away or kept my attention like those original two Double Dash and 64 have. In regard to 64 specifically, really enjoyed it back then, really enjoy it now.
Yep.
There are some things that I've noted about it. I really have taken a note of how aggressive and untransparent the rubber banding is for the AI.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Playing it for this video, it was kind of crazy how, like, I could be playing at what, I mean, it's not high level, but, like, high level for me, like, just mini turbo chaining the crap out of drifting and everything, and they're just staying with me the whole time, and I'm like, what's going on here?
Right.
And it really turned Rainbow Road into, like, this endurance race of, like, constantly just trying to stay ahead, and they're constantly coming up on me. But that led to one of the greatest finishes I've ever had in Mario Kart. That I remember sending to you, where I was playing as Wario, and, like, I noticed that, like, Wario being, I guess, a heavy character, when you go up inclines, you slow down, like, a visible amount, and that created this like dread where, like, they're coming for me, and, like, the final stretch of Rainbow Road is an incline, and they're coming for me, they're gaining on me, and then, like, Toad threw a banana peel, and I was like, this is it, I'm gonna lose right here at the last race. But then he crashed into me. I had a green shell rotating me, and despite the fact I spun out, Toad chose to just collide with me and screwed himself, and I won the race barely.
Nice.
And it was great. But it was fun to, like, really be like, ah! like, playing the game.
Yeah.
Because this is cool. I think it holds up really well. Mario Kart's good stuff. It's a very simple game, but simple. Like, you don't always... Complicated isn't always good.
Yeah.
And I think Mario Kart 64 kind of keeping things simple is what makes it so fun, and it helps it hold up really well.
I think a racing game that kind of built on that, of course, we haven't seen since, which I think is a shame, Diddy Kong Racing. That was one that we played a lot as kids.
That is the natural transition. One last real quick thing I want to say on Mario Kart 64... that they need to bring back in the next one. The blue shell behavior needs to change.
Okay.
It needs to be more like what happened in Mario Kart 64. The spiny shell is in Mario 64, but it doesn't just seek out only the first place player. It travels on the ground and will hit anyone in front of you. So there is a scenario where it could hit every single person in front of you if you're in last place.
Oh, it keeps going.
Yeah.
Oh my, okay. I thought it hit someone and that was it.
I thought the utility of that is way better. Because if you're in 8th place, what does it matter if you blow up the guy in first place?
That's a great point.
You're just screwing him over for no reason.
That's a great point.
Doesn't help you at all. Anyway, yes, Diddy Kong Racing.
Yes, yeah. So you've got this weird villain that we have not seen before, Whiz-Pig, who is so cool. You know, the fact that you had to, like, fight him, like, multiple times throughout the game, all very similar structure, right? The fact that you had planes, carts, the little, just, you know, lot of variety. We saw characters in that at the time were not anything important. And they would grow to be, so it kind of speaks to the impact of that game.
Like
Timba, who's my jam.
He's been in so many games. Like, he hasn't.
He hasn't though. No. But what are some characters that have, Mike?
So I didn't know this until today. I just assumed that Diddy Kong Racing came out, like, super late in the N64 lifespan, which is why it's, like, so, like, good, like, so deep and has so much in it. No, it came out a year after Mario Kart 64, which is incredible how, like, advanced by direct comparison Diddy Kong is. But Banjo and Conker first appeared in Diddy Kong. I can't get my head around that.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It is.
I mean, given the years they came out, they would have been either working on Banjo-Kazooie,
Yep.
or it would have been in pre-production at minimum. So they kind of knew that they were doing
Yep.
things with Banjo. But man, it's crazy that like
Very
Banjo
crazy.
and Conquer debuted in Diddy Kong Racing, and great, super complex, deep, hyper detailed, innovative characters like the turtle in that game would not go on to do other things.
I love the turtle though. I forget his name, but I thought he was cool too.
If you forget his name, you don't really love him then.
I remember Timba.
I know his voice though. The turtle goes like,
I remember Timba goes, Timba! Cool. That's all I remember. Great dialogue.
One
Killer
thing
stuff.
that game also, the soundtrack is great. But
Definitely.
one thing that they did in that game that they also do in Banjo-Kazooie, and people have specifically called out for Banjo-Kazooie being like good with, is the way the soundtrack dynamically transitions while it plays. When you're on that character select screen and like you hover on Diddy Kong, it's like da-da-da-da-da-da, and then you go to the next character and it's like that character's flavor of that song. That's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
I thought that's such a neat and detailed and cool technical thing for that game to do, that every character, Timba included, has like their own version of like the Diddy Kong theme as you cycle around. You're not just choosing the character, the whole atmosphere changes for that character, and it makes the choice like so much more interesting, because you're like, oh, maybe like how like the song kind of affects how like that character.
Yeah.
I had that game. That was a game that we bought. I remember we bought like a bunch of games at once from a game store, and they were like really cheap. They were on sale or something. So it was like a game that I got kind of in bulk with others. And it was a game that I really couldn't figure out that well as a kid.
Yep.
I know I played it a lot, but I also know that I didn't really play it, like, I didn't get far in the story.
The story was hard. Like, I remember, I don't think I ever beat it as a kid. Maybe Brendan did. I certainly did not. I thought Whiz Pig was way too hard.
I've never even gotten beyond the first like thing.
Gotcha.
Playing it for this video, I didn't have as much trouble with it, and I kind of went through that first area, the dinosaur themed tracks.
Yep.
Did not give me much trouble. As a kid, I got stuck on the Triceratops race, but as an adult, I didn't have much trouble. The funny thing was, the second round against him gave me some trouble in the beginning.
Whiz Pig?
No, it's the Triceratops.
Okay, yeah.
It's like a dinosaur.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I remember.
You have to do 2 rounds against him. You beat all the tracks, then you play him, then you beat all the tracks again, and then you fight him again.
Yep.
And the second round against him is a little bit different. It's harder because he's faster, but also there's like additional obstacles. There's this rock pillar that falls down. So when I first raced him, I missed out on getting a mini turbo, and then the rock thing falls. And then I hit it and was like, okay, I gotta restart. And I was like, okay, this time I know it's coming. So I'll just immediately shoot off to the left to go past it where it falls, right? Well, I got a mini turbo and boosted. It doesn't fall until he passes it. So I just crashed into it immediately. So I was like, son of a bitch. And I restarted for the third time. And this time I was like mindful of what's gonna happen.
Sure.
But then I hit a tree or something afterwards. So I was like, dang it! Yeah, but I did beat it. So if I were to continue playing, I could probably beat it. I don't know how hard it is beyond that. It probably gets way harder.
Yeah.
But it was fun to beat that, because I know that as a kid I failed to beat that 100 times. With that said, though, that game is cool as hell.
It is. It's so unique and so strange, and
it's colorful and fun and vibrant, and it's really cool how you could play. Now, some games it forces you into certain vehicles. But some tracks you can choose.
Which I love that.
It's really cool.
Great.
It's really amazing to kind of play the track in a go-kart and then play it as a plane and have like a very different experience.
100%. Yeah. Great game. And I think one more example of a game coming out and a new game coming out that just really builds on what that did well. So just kind of firing from the hip here, a few games on the device that I just really wanted to bring up. Doom 64, loved that game. Turok, loved that game. Squadron, the Star Wars space shooter was really fun.
Oh yeah.
Shadows of the Empire, great. Harvest Moon 64, maybe the best Harvest Moon that they've come out with.
Ooh.
Paper Mario, love that game. There's just a lot. There's a lot on the device that I really, really played a lot of. Star Wars Pod Racer, loved that game. As weird and insane as that game is, and as hard as it is, played it a ton as kids. There's a lot.
I didn't play any of the Star Wars games, and that's because I didn't really watch Star Wars until I was a teenager.
Gotcha.
It wouldn't be until like I was like 16 or 17 and like Spike TV of all channels did like a marathon of all of them, and that was kind of the first time that I sat down and watched them all. Prior to that, never touched Star Wars, so I didn't play any of the Star Wars games. So I know that Shadow of the Empire is one that people cite as like a gem on that console.
Definitely.
Never played it.
It's very weird too, because as a kid it has really barely anything to do with the main story. So it was the first time that I kind of realized that there were a ton of Star Wars stories that went outside of the main 4, 5, and 6, and 1, 2, and 3, I guess. And very strange game. The characters in it, you play as Dash Rendar, who like, who's that? You know, so as a kid, I just thought it was Han, honestly, because he looks, somewhat the same. But no, it's this obscure character that I never heard of as a kid. The villain, never heard of. There's very few references to characters in 4, 5, and 6. Just a weird game, but it's got some really cool stuff to it. Some really cool gameplay loops that we hadn't really seen yet. It's fun. First-person shooters, really. Most of them on the N64 were very good, and games that some of them I've gone back to and played on Switch. Turok, I literally just got it and played through it and had a great time. That game holds up very, very well.
Another one that I really liked that was like probably a blockbuster rental to start with, and then I owned it later on, was the Spider-Man game. I thought that one, although definitely primitive in certain regards, has certain aspects of it that hold up really well. It like legit has like Batman Arkham Asylum vibes, where like that first major bank level, you can like sneak around on the ceiling and like take out dudes one by one. I thought that was really cool and like super fun to play even today. Another one that I had as a kid that I really like and still like is Yoshi's Story.
Oh, yes.
One of the few side-scrollers. It's a true side-scroller. I'm going to get to another one in a second that's not all the way a side-scroller, but it's still 2D, technically. But Yoshi's Story was a fun one, because that game I found to be really hard as a kid, and I just, like, annihilated it today, like no one's business.
Yep.
But I felt like there was, like, a scariness to it that kind of scared me as a kid, because when you die, your Yoshi gets, like, taken away to, like, the Yoshi dungeon, scary, spooky castle. It's a whole cutscene that plays. And then, like, if you get the white Shy Guy, he acts as like a one-up, and he'll rescue your Yoshi from the evil torture dungeon that the Yoshi's being kept in. But then one of those things, kind of like there were always rumors that like Luigi is in Mario 64, which is like technically true. Like I think some data was scrubbed really recently that kind of shows he might have at one point been planned to be in there, but wasn't in there officially. There were rumors that like there was a purple Yoshi and a gold Yoshi you can unlock. No, but there are a black and a white Yoshi.
Cool.
And you can unlock them, and the whole mechanic of that game is you have to eat 30 fruits to beat the stage. Well, the black and white Yoshi can eat things that are toxic to the other Yoshis. Normally, like these chili pepper things, or just like certain types of Shy Guy will hurt the normal Yoshis to eat, not the black and the white Yoshi. They can eat anything, and their eggs are explosive. So it's fun to like kind of seek those out and unlock them and kind of see that rumor fulfilled as an adult. Other kind of quick honorable mentions would be like Quest 64.
What a weird game.
I hate that game.
So weird.
It was a blockbuster rental, and I remember throwing myself at it like 1,000 times, and I couldn't figure it out. As an adult, I kind of understand it, but I think it's still pretty lame.
The fact that it came out around the same time as like Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, and some of those more traditional.
How dare you?
While playing. Well, the fact that it came out around the same times, yet it's so primitive and weird.
That's what I'm saying. How dare the game? Like,
yeah,
how
like
dare
it's
you?
So
Quest 64. Gross. The opening cutscene made me laugh pretty hard though, because it shows these like 4 different kingdoms, but it keeps showing the same picture of the main character. So I was like, is that guy? It's like the king of the Fire Kingdom, and then your character shows up. Is that him? And this is the Water Kingdom with this guy. Same picture. So is that also him? Like, what is going on? I hate that game. I think it's atrocious. Kirby 64 though, another childhood favorite.
Great one.
Really loved that game as a kid. Played the crap out of it and adored it. Also a side scroller, one of the few shoulder D-pad mode games. That game it's one of the few N64 games that has a lot of cutscenes in it. And as a kid, I really grabbed onto that and be like really into it and like found things really funny or cool or whatever. And then Pokemon Stadium. So Pokemon,
that's a weird one too.
Pokemon and me have a weird relationship. As a kid, I really liked the Pokemon TV show, but couldn't really usually watch it because it would come on in the morning right when I had to leave for school. And when I got back from school, it was just ending, and I would never be able to like watch like full episodes of it. But Pokemon Stadium, I didn't have a Game Boy, so I couldn't do like the transfer your pokes to it kind of stuff. Couldn't do that. But I did play it a lot. And I remember like at one point having like, it must have been super lucky. I remember getting to like one of the last battles rather, of like one of the higher leagues before losing and didn't beat it. But yeah, love that game. Have a lot of fun with it. You and I played it together on the channel. Yeah,
for me, we had it as kids. We played it. I remember the most exciting thing about that game for me was just being able to see like 3D battles, right? Because at that time we had played a ton of Red, Yellow, and Blue, like a ton. But we had never seen like 3D battles, right? So that was the really cool thing about that game. Still don't think that they've made like a Pokemon Stadium that like makes a lot of sense in my opinion. They're all kind of weird in like a very unique way. But played it a lot as a kid, primarily because of the 3D battle setup. Cool game, but part of a weird series.
I always liked how over the top the announcer was.
Oh yeah.
Whoa! Major damage!
Yeah.
Like he's really into it.
Definitely.
He's into it more than any of the players ever would possibly be.
Very much.
But it elevates the energy of the room. It's cool.
Definitely.
Another like quick mention of a game that I really liked as a kid, and it's one of those like obscure ones, is Chameleon Twist 2. It's a pretty generic-y platformer. You play as like a chameleon, an anthropomorphic kind of chameleon wearing a backpack.
So it's DLC for Gek.
Yeah. I love lizards as a kid. That is like just one of the best examples of it's a video game in the sense that it has this core mechanic and that makes up the entire identity of the game. And it's the tongue. You press and hold the B button, and the chameleon's tongue will shoot out, and you can steer it.
Oh, that's cool.
And it moves like 50 times the body length of your character to an extent that it's hilarious to watch. But you use it in all kinds of different ways. Like, it's a platforming thing. You can grab onto things, and you like, zip to them, like Spider-Man or Batman style. Or you can like grapple enemies and like eat multiple enemies at once with it. The soundtrack of the first level is super catchy.
Interesting.
I found myself listening to it and humming it nonstop the day that I played this, like earlier this week.
Wow.
But the game itself largely doesn't hold up all that well. Pretty generic, but one that I liked as a kid. Fun times there. So
got it.
I think that touches on not all of the ones here, but we will be here all day if we do.
Absolutely.
But now what I want to do is, for this final quick segment, is kind of the game that we think held up the best and why. And that's what we'll get into. So first, the one that I think held up the best. Star Fox 64 for me.
Okay.
Is the one that I think holds up the best, and is just one of my favorite N64 games overall. Out of all the games that I played in prep for this video, whether it be just because I knew I wanted to talk about it, or just wanted to experience N64 all over again, play all the games I remember having as a kid, that is the one that I got the most enthralled with and played the most by far, by choice.
Great game.
Yeah, holy crap, is that game good. Yeah. Everything about it is great. I think the gameplay is great. It's engaging. It's frenetic. It is the kind of game that, again, like, you can play that easy path and anyone can play it, or there are mechanics that you can get really good at, and it's a game that you can master and have a ton of fun with. Yep. It's got voice acting. It has a fun little story. It has replayability. I think it just hits all the marks just perfectly. Yep. And it kind of impressed me how well designed it is in respect to being replayable. Because the way the game works is it's a linear kind of on-rails action shooter game. Yep. As you navigate the levels, you're shooting down enemies, you assist your squad mates when they get into trouble, they'll ask for help, do things, whatever. You fight a boss at the end and you move on. And all the levels kind of have like alternate ways of completing them. Yep. And that lends to the path that you take being different. Basically, there's an easy path, a medium path, and a hard path. Yep. But you can play it very flexibly. You can shift paths multiple directions, multiple ways. Yep. And crisscross that map in so many different ways. And that's where the replayability of it becomes so interesting. Yep. Because Sector X, which is on the easy path, has an optional path of completing it by opening up these little gateways, and then you warp to Sector Z, which is on the hard path. But that's pretty hard to do. It's really difficult, even with Turbo, to do that on your own. If you instead get to Sector Z from the Katina level, which is an alternate previous way of doing it, and you complete that level successfully, the character Bill will then show up in Sector X and help you shoot those gates down. Yep. Just the same, Sector Z is a big boss fight against these missiles that are shooting at the Great Fox. And if you're not kind of on it, those missiles will hit the Great Fox, damage it physically, which really compounds the sense of failure, and then you don't get to go to Area 6, which is the hard path final ending. If you successfully completed Zonus with the character Cat there, and complete that, she shows up and helps you in Sector Z to help manage those missiles more.
Heck yeah.
It's crazy how interesting it is to replay it and kind of experience those different outcomes and whatnot. But that was really cool. Just the same, your own squad mates can get damaged and they're forced to leave levels, and if that happens, they're absent for the next level, which changes certain points in those levels where if, say, you're in the asteroid field and there's a part where Pepe's oh my gosh, I need help, and his enemies come after him. Well, if he's not there, that whole sequence is different. It's a different enemy encounter entirely. So levels can feel different if they're not with you. Yeah. But man, that was so cool to see. But there's a lot of highlights in that game. I really like the train boss guy.
Yes.
Who you can beat by making him crash into this ammo depot, and it's just catastrophic explosion that happens.
Oh yeah.
He's no, hit the brakes! It's this whole thing that happens.
So on that exact note, that game has so many one-liners that are just killer. Probably the one that I like the most is when Fox says, and I think it's I forget the name of the stage, but it's the one when they're going to Venom, and he says, "We're gonna break through that fleet."
Area 6.
Ugh, so good. There are so many of those, never give up, trust your instincts. Just so many great one-liners from that game. What are some of the ones that you recall?
So I really like the boss of Sector Y, that's the level where there's a bunch of monkey Gundam suits that you're shooting.
Oh, so cool.
And he's cocky little freaks!
Yeah. There you go, yeah. That's a great one.
That's a good one. I also really like the dude who's the boss of the asteroid field, the Meteor Crusher.
Yep.
He's like, I'm afraid you cannot go any further, or I cannot allow you to go any further.
Yep.
And then he's one of the examples of where things are different, because with Fox, if Falco is with you when you beat that guy halfway, he's like, I admit defeat, and then Falco will say like, "You're not gonna trust that monkey, are you?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, "You're not as stupid as you look."
Yeah, and then he
but
turns around.
If
yeah.
Falco's not with you,
Ooh.
he's not there to say, you're not gonna trust him, are you? So he instead says, "If this does not work," and then desperately does his final moves on you. I love how it's different.
Yeah.
Then
so
of course
good.
Starwolf is like the most iconic.
Yeah.
By far, between all their various lines.
This is not him, but it's part of the group. Uncle Andrew.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember
Andrew.
That one. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a loser. Uncle Andrew.
I think there's a lot of great ones, but the one that like still gives me chills when I hear it is when Andros says, "Only I have the brains to rule Lilat."
Those tin cans are no match for me.
So good, man.
Yeah, he has a lot of scary lines. He's a scary dude.
Yeah, yeah.
I also kind of like that it doesn't make any sense. Well, actually, you can. There is a way that you can play the game and fight Starwolf on Fortuna, and then rematch them in Venom. But you'd have to hit that warp zone in Sector X to do that. Otherwise, when you play the game, they show up in their new ships and they're all like injured and cyborgs.
Love it.
But like you wouldn't have fought them first.
Yeah.
So it's like, in my mind, the canonical story is that Star Fox went to all those worlds before going to Venom. That's the only way it makes sense.
Right.
But that Area 6 thing, man, is like such an adrenaline rush.
The soundtrack for that stage?
It's really
Dude,
good.
Get out of here. Yeah,
it's really good.
That is like peak that game.
It's worth noting, too, that when you get a certain high score in every stage, you get a medal. And playing this game for this video, I finally got the medals for Aquas and Zonus.
Nice, dude. Congrats.
Meaning I only have to get it for Area 6 now. And I was gonna get it, and the game crashed.
No.
Yes, I have the footage to prove it. The game froze. It like crashed and froze.
Oh, that's
I was
terrible.
like, God, I was gonna do it. Hi, Miki. Yeah. Come here. Look who's in the video now.
Cat.
You're famous. What you been doing today? You're gonna go mess with the table.
Great game though, man. I think it shows, because that gameplay loop is like not like a really like groundbreaking thing, right? But it's all the stuff that they add to it, the story, the characters, the dialogue, all of those things that make the story great. That game has. And the great thing about it is that you really don't know that those elements are there unless you look for them, right?
Yeah.
Because like I said, you can play through that game on that bottom belt and really not see anything, any of the stuff. You don't even do that stage. So it's just great game for sure, and it does hold up for sure.
It's so good that they have failed to recapture it.
I was just gonna say
every time after. Star Fox Adventures, I actually liked as a kid. Don't like as much as an adult. Save that for the GameCube retrospective, which I want to do really bad now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
This is going to be a whole thing now we're going to do.
Yep.
It's going to be great. And then Star Fox Assault tried to be more like 64. Again, liked it as a kid. Still kind of like it as an adult. It's not as good, though.
Yep.
And then, like, whatever the hell Star Fox Command was on DS.
That game was fun. I played it a little bit.
Star Fox Zero on Wii U, trash.
Yeah. Everyone
kind of hates it. The only good one to come after 64 is the remake of 64 on 3DS.
That's true. That's true.
It's the only one that's like, it's the same game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great stuff, man. That game is so good.
Yep.
I want to play later today. I want to get the medal in Area 6. I got really close. I was only like 4 or 6 shy of getting it. Something like that. It was under 10. Like legitimately 3 more kills would have done it.
Nice.
And like, because you can get multiple hits off charge shots. Like 1 or 2 charge shot kills was all I was shy of getting, and I was like, no!
That's wild. That's wild.
So one day soon, if I get that, I'll unlock expert mode, which is where Fox will have sunglasses on.
Yep,
Like
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, we. I guess it was Brendan who just completely dominated that game when we were kids, because I remember all that stuff. I remember seeing literally everything that game has, including the Fox with the sunglasses. So
Don't ever give up, my son.
Oh. That just goes back. Dude, that's what I'm saying.
So climactic.
So good. Yeah, the fire's coming behind you.
That is like Super Metroid levels of like you're on the edge of your seat.
100%.
Final battle. It's
and the final fight, how it's in that huge room, and he's the brain thing. It's just crazy. Just crazy.
What's your
so my game is going to take about a quarter of the time. And it's a game that we picked up and played, not us, but friends back in Florida, in the garage in 2010. We decided that it would be fun to do like tournaments for this game, and it is NFL Blitz. Crazy game, but I'm telling you, you can play that game today with a buddy, and it is an absolute blast.
I don't own that game, so I can't like cut to footage of it. So
zany and weird, crazy game, a ton of fun. Much like Star Fox, we haven't really seen a game like that since. Maybe NFL Street, but I would say NFL Blitz is the pinnacle of like absolute insane weird sports video game, right? Great game, holds up really well.
Keep talking. I gotta
very
stop
fun.
her from knocking over the light. Mickey, no. Don't do it.
But yeah, NFL Blitz. If you've got it, play it. It's really fun, hard to find, not cheap. Great game. You will have a really, really good time. But yeah, mine is NFL Blitz. You know, I've played a few recently. I played Turok on the Switch and thought that was great. But as far as the game on the device that I think holds up the best and is still fun today, NFL Blitz.
I've heard of that game, and kind of on that note, I know that like there's a lot of love for those non-official NFL games.
Yeah.
Because apparently they are just like genuinely really good.
Yeah.
What was like there was like one that's like it's on. I have it on 360 back there. It's kind of valuable. Backbreaker or something. What's it called?
I haven't played it.
I heard that one's really good. Then there's like
nice.
that. There's like that other one on PS3 and 360. Damn, what's it called? There's like all these non-EA ones that people
liked
love.
NFL Street, but that was EA. But yeah, NFL Blitz, great stuff. Really, really fun. And that's what I'm telling you. Well, at some point we'll play it. We'll like split it or something. It'll be fun. Yeah.
There you go.
In half, right?
I got you half of NFL Blitz.
Nice.
Don't expect it to work.
Trying to think if I have any ones that I don't want to miss.
The only ones that I forgot that I'll just do like real 30-second hot takes of: Hot Wheels Turbo Racing.
Gotcha.
Loved that as a kid. It's a fun little game because I like how it makes you unlock cars. You do unlock a lot of cars by completing like the Grand Prix things,
Yes.
which by the way was way too effing long. Holy crap! It makes you do 6 laps. 6 laps, 6
Jeez.
tracks. It was like an hour. Have mercy on my life. You unlock cars from doing that, but you also unlock cars by finding little collectible secret cars in the races.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is really cool. You have to like hunt them down, and it's like all difficult for someone to get them. Really cool.
Nice.
Had a lot of fun with that. And then Lego Racers. Loved that game as a kid. That game is effing trash now. Screw that game.
That's fun.
It's terrible.
I never played it.
The controls are wonky and weird and like too tight. It's imprecise. It has the same kind of item system that Diddy Kong Racing has.
Oh, cool.
Where you can like hit a balloon and then like you hit it again, you get like a double version.
Yeah.
And then a triple version. Like Lego Racers does the same thing.
Gotcha.
which is cool because it's a cool mechanic.
Right.
The most iconic of Lego Racer's abilities is the triple level boost. You warp ahead, but like you always end up coming out like in a corner or something. Like you crash your car. It's even worth it at that point.
Gotcha.
Like I literally had a clip, like it's in my capture where like I got it. I was like, oh cool, wait, and then like I just crash immediately into like the side of the road.
That's great.
And I had to like back up and like ruin the whole point of it.
Nice.
Yeah, hate that game now. I did not. I'm probably being too mean, but like, yeah, didn't care for it at all.
Jet Force Gemini, gonna call that one out. Recently came out on Switch. Try it out. It's fun. Played a lot of it as a kid. Has a cool multiplayer element. Gives me like Starship Troopers vibes, in a good way, because you're fighting bugs that have
the not fascism parts.
Right, of course. Right. Well. No, the great game. Got a cool story. The controls suffer because what that game could do with dual analog and just a crosshair would have completely changed the game and really made it like way ahead of its time if they would have implemented some of those things. But yeah, I think that's about it for me, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I touched on all these at least a little bit. We Mario Kart and Diddy Kong and Lego Trash and Quest Trash and other good games. There's plenty of good games. There's others. There are plenty of others that like I have played that didn't make it into this.
Yeah.
Like Mario Golf, Mario Tennis. I didn't actually play those as a kid.
Mario Tennis. I have not played a sports game to date more than I've played Mario Tennis.
Really?
Me and Thomas, we tried to get Brendan into it. Mario Tennis was like bloodbaths for us. We would play like 5-set 6-game rounds, which if you know tennis, you know how long that is. We loved that game. Mario Tennis was really good. Didn't really play a lot of Mario Golf, but Mario Tennis was great.
I never played Mario Golf. I grew up on like the GameCube Mario sports games. Like I didn't play any of them because I was 64.
Mario Baseball. We've played it already. We don't need to play it anymore, but so good.
I think we do.
You think so?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
We need to do the story mode. It'll be fun.
Oof.
We take turns.
Brutal.
Be a good time. Be a good time, right, Mickey?
Cool.
All right. I think we've covered all the bits there.
Yeah.
N64. Love it.
Yeah.
It's got some interesting little quirks because of its age and the fact that it was the first 3D console for Nintendo.
Yep.
I mean, not everyone can be like the PlayStation, I guess. I mean, even the PlayStation's first controller was kind of garbage.
Oh, yeah.
But, like...
Dual analog changed everything.
Yeah. Pretty smart to release that in the same console generation.
Yeah.
Interesting quirk there. But, yeah, man. N64, classic. Definitely fun to revisit a lot of these because, like... A lot of what I've been doing for the channel has been like to show off those RetroTINK devices.
Yep.
So like I don't like sit down and like play a game for like 30 minutes. I'm just like recording one specific part of it, you know? So it's kind of fun to like break that mold for the first time in a while and like just play a lot of these games. It's a good time.
Definitely.
So I've enjoyed reminiscing with you.
Absolutely.
I definitely want to do more of this video type, whether it be like individual game reviews again or like a game review or a GameCube retrospective be like the next big thing for me because that's the console that I really was having a lot of fun with in its time. So yeah, man, good times. Thanks everyone for joining us on this. It's been a good time to revisit all this, have a lot of fun with this. Look forward to the next one. We will see you all next time. Nah, I think I'll let it ride.
What you should do is you should like really set yourself up tonight. Like go to bed at like 9. Take a sleep.
I did that last night and it didn't work.
Well, do it again. Did you take a sleep aid?
You should.
No, I didn't.
Dude, Tylenol PMs are the shit, bro. You'll dream really hard, but you'll sleep good. Take 2 and you'll forget everything.
Wake up and I'm like, who am I?
Who am I? Where am I? What am I?
I'm a blank. Am I dog or cat or wife? For sure.
I think that's something that if we could get better at, it would be that.
Agreed.
That's why I was like, hey, what's the name of that band again? So you could plug them one more time, and then
they owe me
kind of
money,
move on.
like Bubbly.
Yeah,
does.
exactly. And pretty soon we'll be rich.
That's how it works.
We'll make them pay us. We'll just go Coke, drink Coke, drink Coke. Have a nice refreshing Coke, and we'll have glass bottles of Coke all.
Today we're talking about Predator. Drink Coke. The thing about Predator is it stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, who likes Coca-Cola.
He does.
Much like I do, drink it.
So does Dylan.
There's one thing Dylan likes, it's Coke. Drink Coke.
And then we do the thing, but we miss, and we both have bottles of Coke in our hand.
Oh my god, that'd be perfect.
Oh, that's so good.
It's like advertising campaigns that are unironically the thing from They Live.
Yeah,
Like,
100%. Consume.
Consume Coke.
Yeah.
Drink Coke. Consume it.
Oh, God.
Inject it into yourself. Hey, I'm Mike, and welcome to Retro Boost. Joining me today is Tory, who co-hosts the Retro Boost podcast with me, and we've done a year's worth of Retro Boost arcade videos playing games together.
Absolutely. Yep. You can catch some of our... Oh, I screwed that up. Sorry. Okay, we'll start over.
What was that about to be? You can catch us Saturdays at 8.
The problem is I don't know the time cadence of when stuff comes out. So
Well, nothing's even in the pipeline anyway, though.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
there's no point in me.
You can catch us never because there's no videos coming out.
This will be the next one, so you can catch us when this comes
Whenever
out.
we film the next one, you can catch us then.
Oh,
that is awesome. Like, if that was
Sorry,
like a
dog.
TV at the end of their season and they don't know it yet, and they're like, you can catch us next week, and they're like, no.
Don't say anything. What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Have you ever seen that Jennifer Lawrence meme where she's on the spicy wings show, and she's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" It's hilarious,
I have
and
not.
the applications for that GIF are wonderful. I'll use one of them one day in our chat. But
Oh, perfect.
it's
Something
very
to look
funny.
forward to.
100%. All right, sorry.
I really wish you didn't and just kept going with that, like, once again, the confidently incorrect thing, where it's just like, you
Catch us
catch us
next time,
next
whenever
time.
you can catch us. Oh man, okay.
So funny.
Alright, sorry, no.
Hey, I'm Mike, and welcome to Retro Boost. Joining me today is Tory, my co-host from the Retro Boost God damn it.